Now then, Vinyl Monkey again, S, yeah, all sorts behind me in the S category, from Cat Stevens to Bruce Springsteen, from Wayne Short at the sensational Alex Harvey Band, from the Stylistics to Soft Machine, and lots and lots and lots of others. But I talked about racism last week, and I really want to take the opportunity to talk about one of the other isms that afflicts what we sometimes call civilization, and that's sexism, which I suppose it's since time immemorial, man has developed all sorts of ways to keep women down. I suppose in the early days it was thousands of years ago, maybe brute force, brute physical violence and force would do it, and sadly that hasn't gone away by any stretch of the imagination. But over time, more and more subtle or sophisticated ways to keep women down were developed, whether they were legal systems, political systems, or absurd religions, any of them, pick any of them, Christianity, Islam, a lot of them, where they actually invent gods that deem from on high that women are second class citizens. So and it's, why is it relevant to this? It's relevant to everything. It's relevant to art, to music, to business, and Vinyl Monkey, sad to say, is not immune from this male dominated system. And if you look at the 100 or so albums that I've put up over the last few months, I think less than 20% of them were by women. So what can I can apologise for that, and by way of what is extremely tokenistic redress, I will only talk about albums by women tonight under the letter S. So to get us started, an incredible artist. This is Buffy Sainte-Marie, and their album Little Wheels Spin and Spin from 1966. It's a folk album, but Buffy Sainte-Marie is no ordinary folk artist. She's an incredible artist with an incredible story. She's a Native American. She was born on a reservation in Canada. She was abandoned as a baby. She was adopted eventually by other Native Americans. And she writes protest songs, and she's written some of the most powerful protest songs through the 60s and 70s. She's actually the only Native American to ever win an Oscar, and that was for a song in the film, and I've forgotten the name of the song. It was sang by Joe Cocker and Jennifer Warnes, and written by Buffy Sainte-Marie, so she won an Oscar for that. She also wrote one of the great anti-war songs that was made famous by Donovan. That's Universal Soldier, brilliant song, is one of hers. And on this album, some nice songs. I like Rolling Log Blues. I like Men of the Fields that she does with Patrick Skye on second guitar. And she does a really long song, My Country 'Tis of Thy People You're Dying, which is her sort of view, if you like, of our experience of growing up as a Native American in USA and Canada. And she has achieved all of this and more, and is still active and writing and protesting, and she achieved all of that despite direct attempts by the American government, which include letters by at least two American presidents, Lyndon B. Johnson and Richard Nixon, which were ordering or strongly trying to persuade people in the music business that her career should be suppressed. I mean, the most appalling discrimination, and in a so-called Western democracy. But despite that, she is still going, as far as I'm aware, and a really, really powerful artist, Buffy Sainte-Marie, Little Wheels Spin and Spin, 1966. The second one, and I'm cheating already, but this is the Supremes, but they're also with the Four Tops, so the three Supremes are obviously women, the Four Tops are men. And this is Return of the Magnificent Seven from 1970. So these are two of the three great Tamla Motown vocal bands, the other one being the Temptations, and as you'd expect, the lead soulful vocals by Gene Terrell and Levi Stubbs and the backing harmonies by the Supremes and the Four Tops are just sublime, feel good stuff, all really, really nice, great Tamla Motown sound, and good cover as well. I love the cover where all seven are dressed in sort of cowboy outfits and addressing the obvious issue that they reckon that in the 1860s to 1890s that about 25% of cowboys actually were black, and yet 0% of cowboys depicted in cowboy films in that era, depicting that era, 0% were black. So yeah, it sort of confronts that anomaly, and it does it 3 or 4 years before Blazing Saddles had a go at the same issue, and then a long time before Tarantino had a go at it, didn't he, with Django. So yeah, great Tamla Motown album, Return of the Magnificent Seven, Supremes and Four Tops, 1970. The third one, well, what to say about this artist? Patti Smith. This is Easter from 1978. Patti Smith is, I think the term for someone is multi-talented across many fields. Is it polymath, or have I got that wrong? I should have researched that before I started this video, but anyway, whatever the word is, she deserves it. She is a singer, she's a songwriter, she's a musician, she's a photographer, she's a visual artist, she's a brilliant prose writer. If you get the chance to have a read of any of the 5 or 6 books, or maybe 6 or 7 books that she's produced, and lots of essays that she's written, it's an absolute joy to read. She is just one of those people who's a very, very, very gifted writer and poet. And she got into the sort of CBGB New York sort of punk scene early on, and she just writes the most powerful songs and performs them in the most powerful way. I've seen her live 3 times. Sometimes I feel almost scared by her power and presence, but in a good way. It's she's absolutely brilliant. This particular album includes probably her best known song, Because the Night, which was a hit single she co-wrote with Bruce Springsteen. But I also love Rock and Roll Nigger, We Three is a great song, and 25th Floor. But yeah, sort of a landmark album from 1978, Patti Smith Group, Easter. The next one has a direct link with Patti Smith in that this band were allegedly formed at a Patti Smith concert a few years before that, and this is the Slits, Cut, also from, it's from 1979 I think, 1979 this album. And this is the Slits all-women band, the 3 women on the front, Ari Up, as she became known, but Ari Forster was her real name, Viv Albertine, guitarist, and Tessa Powett, the bass player, and they were all part of the sort of punk milieu, is it? The sort of gangs around London at the time, knocking about with the Sex Pistols and the Clash and co. Harry Forster's mum, Nora, actually ended up, she married, John is still married to John Lydon. I mean, sadly Harry Ariane died in her 40s, breast cancer, maybe 10, 12 years ago. But Viv Albertine wrote a brilliant autobiography a few years ago, definitely worth the read, superb autobiography. And this is I mentioned Landmark for the Patti Smith album. This is a landmark punk album, and one that sustains. Not many albums stand up 40 years later from the, you know, they were about 2-minute thrashers, they were about the live experience, as I've said before. But this one, it's not dated, it's still really, really interesting to listen to. That's partly because the production has a sort of dub reggae feel. It's Dennis Bovell, who also produced Linton Kwesi Johnson. So it's a bit different to your normal punk stuff. But really, really striking, powerful, feminist songs. And if you're going to try one song only, maybe try Typical Girls. It's a really outstanding track. And I think that did become a single, but it didn't do much. And then the B-side of that single is also on this reissue, the cover of Marvin Gaye's I Heard It Through the Grapevine, a great cover of that. So that's the Slits cut from 1979. And then lastly, under the letter S, Michelle Shocked. I think she was originally called Karen Michelle Johnston, changed her name early on in her career. This is her first album on a mainstream sort of label. She'd had a minor label album before this. This is Short Sharp Shocked from 1988. Michelle Shocked produced 3 or 4 lovely albums, beautiful songs, late 80s, early 90s. And I've picked this one because it's got 2 of my favourite Michelle Shocked songs. Anchorage, people might be familiar with, a great song about friendship and lost or distant friendship. Beautiful lyrics and melody. But perhaps my favourite Michelle Shocked song is Memories of East Texas, which very sort of simply but cleverly and nicely uses the metaphor of learning to drive on those East Texas roads for how difficult it was to grow up as a sort of punk anarchist in a strict Mormon family in staunch Republican redneck Texas. I learned to drive on those East Texas red clay back roads, and I mean to tell you, my friend, they weren't no easy roads. You had to watch out for all the curves down by Kelsey Creek and detour through the Lindsay pasture when the waters ran too deep. Memories of East Texas and Gilmer, county seat of Upshur. Looking back and asking myself, what the hell do you let them break your spirit for? You know their lives ran in circles so small. They thought they'd seen it all, and they could not make a place for a girl who'd seen the ocean. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Seek out that song if you haven't heard it before, and Anchorage, and any of the others off this album or the albums around that. Brilliant stuff. I'm not sure what Michelle Shocked is up to these days. She got herself mired in some controversies over the last 10 or so years, alleged homophobic comments, some right-wing sort of nonsense. Sounded a bit, on the face of it, a bit screwed up. Perhaps not surprising, another one screwed up by religious fundamentalist upbringings, but I hope she's okay, because she produced some brilliant work, and this is part of it. Michelle Shocked, Short Sharp Shocked, 1988. Okay, so that's the letter S. Hope you might join me next time. T. Cheers.